we're gonna do Badass Woman of Herstory. Boom! Alright. Maya Angelou. I don't like the angle right here. That's a little better. So Maya Angelou, born Margaret Annie Johnson on April 4th, 1928. She passed May 28th, 2014. She was an American memoirist, poet, and civil rights activist. She published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, several books of poetry, and is credited with a list of plays, movies, and TV shows spanning over 50 years. She received dozens of awards and more than 50 honorary degrees. Angelou's series of 7 autobiographies focuses on her childhood and her early adult experiences. The first, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, from 1969, tells of her life up to the age of 17 and brought her international recognition and acclaim. Wow, that's the year my mom was born. I've heard of that book, but I haven't read it. I should read it. She became a poet and a writer after a string of odd jobs during her young adulthood. These included fry cook, sex worker, nightclub performer, Porgy and Bess cast member, Southern Christian Leadership Conference coordinator, and correspondent in Egypt and Ghana during the decolonization of Africa. Wow. She was also an actress, writer, director, and producer of plays, movies, and public television programs. In 1982, she was named the first Reynolds Professor of American Studies at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Angelou was active in the civil rights movement and worked with Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Beginning in the 1990s, she made approximately 80 appearances a year on the lecture circuit, something she continued into her 80s. In 1993, Angelou recited her poem on the Pulse of Morning, which she wrote in 1993, at the first inauguration of Bill Clinton, making her the first poet to make an inaugural recitation since Robert Frost at the inauguration of John F. Kennedy in 1961. Maya Angelou was born Margaret Annie Johnson in St. Louis, Missouri. I was just there this summer. Shout out to the family. The younger of 2 children of Bailey Johnson, a doorman and Navy dietitian, and Vivian Johnson, a nurse and card dealer. For the first 3 years of her life, her family lived in her maternal grandparents' home. Angelou's older brother Bailey Jr., nicknamed Margaret Maya, derived from Maya's sister. When Angelou was 3 and her brother 4, their parents' calamitous marriage ended and their father sent them to Stamps, Arkansas, alone by train, to live with their paternal grandmother, Annie Henderson. Oh, that sucks. In an astonishing exception to the harsh economics of African Americans of the time, Angelou's grandmother prospered financially during the Great Depression and World War II because the general store she owned sold basic and needed commodities, and because she made wise and honest investments. Quote unquote, she made wise and honest. I don't know where that quote's from. So it was good that she went. She learned a lot. 4 years later, when Angelou was 7 and her brother 8, the children's father came to Stamps without warning and returned them to their mother's care in St. Louis. Damn, back in the day, you just threw your kids around wherever. At the age of 8, while living with her mother, Angelou was sexually abused and raped by her mother's boyfriend, a man named Freeman. She told her brother, who told the rest of the family. Freeman was found guilty, but was jailed for only 1 day. 4 days after his release, he was murdered, probably by Angelou's uncles. Angelou became mute for almost 5 years, believing she was to blame for his death. As she stated, "I thought my voice killed him. I killed that man because I said his name. Because I told his name. And then I thought I would never speak again because my voice would kill anyone." According to Marcia Ann Gillespie and her colleagues who wrote a biography about Angelou, it was during this period of science when Angelou developed her extraordinary memory, her love for books and literature, and her ability to listen and observe the world around her. Shortly after Freeman's murder, when Angelou was 8 and her brother 9, Angelou and her brother were sent back to their grandmother. She attended the Lafayette County Training School in Stamps, Rosenwald School. Angelou credits a teacher and friend of her family, Mrs. Bertha Flowers, what a cool teacher name, Mrs. Flowers, with helping her speak again, challenging her by saying, "You do not love poetry, not until you speak it." Flowers introduced her to Charles Dickens, William Shakespeare, Edgar Allan Poe, Georgia Douglas Johnson, and James Weldon Johnson, authors who would affect Angelou's life. Oh, no. If I'm saying her name wrong, I apologize. I feel like I heard Angelou, St. Luke. Angelou from the Lou, as well as black female artists such as Frances Harper, Ann Spencer, and Jessie Fawcett. When Maya Angelou was 14 and her brother 15, she and her brother moved once again with their mother, who had since moved to Oakland, California, West, y'all. During World War II, Angelou attended the California Labor School. At the age of 16, she became the first black female streetcar conductor in San Francisco. She wanted the job badly, admiring the uniforms of the operators, describing the women in uniforms as having their little money changing belts and with bibs on their caps and well-fitted uniforms. So much so that her mother referred to it as her dream job. Her mother encouraged her to pursue the position, but warned her that she would need to arrive early and work harder than the others. In 2014, Angelou received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials as part of a session billed Women Who Move the Nation. 3 weeks after completing school at the age of 17, she gave birth to her son, Clyde, who later changed his name to Guy Johnson. Adulthood and early career from 1951 to 61. In 1951, Maya Angelou married Tosh Angelos. Angelos. Well, a Greek electrician, former sailor, aspiring musician, despite the condemnation of interracial relationships at the time and the disapproval of her mother. She took modern dance classes during this time and met dancers and choreographers Alvin Ailey and Ruth Buckford. Ailey and Angelou formed a dance team calling themselves Al and Rita and performed modern dance at fraternal black organizations throughout San Francisco, but never became successful. Angelou, her new husband, and her son moved to New York City so she could study African dance with Trinidadian dancer Pearl Primus, but they returned to San Fran a year later. After Angelou's marriage ended in 1954, she danced professionally in clubs around San Francisco, including the nightclub The Purple Onion, where she sang and danced to calypso music. Up to that point, she went by the name of Margaret Johnson, or Rita, but at the strong suggestion of her managers and supporters at The Purple Onion, she changed her professional name to Maya Angelou, her nickname and former married surname. It was a distinctive name that set her apart and captured the feel of her calypso dance performances. During 1955, Angelou toured Europe with the production of the opera Porgy and Bess. She began her practice of learning the language of every country she visited. And in a few years, she gained proficiency in several languages. Now, remember, she had the memorization that she practiced on whenever she wasn't talking for 5 years. In 1957, riding on the popularity of calypso, Angelou recorded her first album, Miss Calypso, which was reissued as a CD in 1996. She appeared in an off-Broadway revue that inspired the 1957 film Calypso Heatwave, in which Angelou sang and performed her own compositions. Angelou met novelist John Oliver Killens in 1959, and at his urging moved to New York to concentrate on her writing career. She joined the Harlem Writers Guild, where she met several major African-American authors, including John Henrik Clarke, Rosa Guy, Paul Marshall, and Julian Mayfield, and was published for the first time. In 1960, after meeting civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. and hearing him speak, she and Killens organized the legendary Cabaret for Freedom to benefit the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and she was named SCLC's Northern Coordinator. According to scholar Lyman B. Hagan, her contributions to civil rights as a fundraiser and SCLC organizer were successful and eminently effective. She also began her pro-Castro and anti-apartheid activism during this time, joining the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. She had joined the crowd cheering for Fidel Castro when he first entered the Hotel Teresa in Harlem, New York, during the United Nations 15th General Assembly on September 19th, 1960. So when I think 1960, I think 40 years ago, right? But then you got to add, that's the 2000. Then you got to add the 20 and the 5, so that's, what was it, 1960? So 40, 50, 65 years ago. Ooh. In 1961, Angelou performed in I have to keep saying Maya Angelou in my head to say it right. Maya Angelou performed in John Ganet's play The Blacks, playing the part of the Queen, along with Abby Lincoln, Roscoe Lee Brown, James Earl Jones, who we talked about earlier, because he was the voice of Darth Vader, Louis Gossett, Godfrey Cambridge, and Cicely Tyson. Also in 1961, she met South African freedom fighter Visumsi Maki, which they never officially married. She and her son Guy moved with Maki to Cairo, where Angelou served as an associate editor of the weekly English language newspaper, The Arab Observer. Man, she moved so many places. In 1962, her relationship with Maki ended, and she and Guy moved to Accra, Ghana, so he could attend college. But he was seriously injured in an automobile accident. Angelou remained in Accra for his recovery and ended up staying there until 1965. She became an administrator at the University of Ghana and was active in the African American expatriate community. I guess those are African Americans who went over there to Africa. She was a feature editor for the African Review, a freelance writer for the Ghanaian Times, wrote and broadcast for Radio Ghana, and worked and performed for Ghana's National Theater. No matter where she went, she was thriving. She performed in a revival of the Blacks in Geneva and Berlin. In Accra, she became close friends with Malcolm X during his visit in the early 1960s. Angelou returned to the U.S. in 1965 to help him build a new civil rights organization, the Organization of Afro-Americans Unity. He was assassinated shortly afterwards. Devastated and adrift, she joined her brother in Hawaii, where she resumed her singing career. She moved back to LA to focus on her writing career. Working as a market researcher in Watts, Angelou witnessed the riots in the summer of 1965. She acted in and wrote plays and returned to New York in 1967. She met her lifelong friend Rosa Guy and renewed her friendship with James Baldwin, whom she had met in Paris in the 1950s and called "my brother" during this time. Her friend Jerry Purcell provided Angelou with the stipend to support her writing. Nice. In 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. asked Angelou to organize a march. She agreed, but postponed again, and in what Gillespie calls a macabre twist of fate, he was assassinated on her 40th birthday, April 4th. Devastated again, she was encouraged out of her depression by her friend James Baldwin. As Gillespie states, if 1968 was a year of great pain, loss, and sadness, it was also the year when America first witnessed the breadth and depth of Maya Angelou's spirit and creative genius. Despite having almost no experience, she wrote, produced, and narrated Blacks, Blues, Black, a 10-part series of documentaries about the connection between blues music and Black Americans' African heritage, and what Angelou called the Africanism still current in the U.S. for National Education Television, the precursor of PBS. Also in 1968, inspired at a dinner party she attended with Baldwin, cartoonist Jules Feiffer and his wife Judy, and challenged By Random House editor Robert Loomis, she wrote her first autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, published in 1969. That brought her international recognition and acclaim. Wow. So what she could teach us, what this teaches us, is to not stop. No matter what. Keep going. Wow. Amazing. Truly amazing. Maya Angelou, R.I.P. Alright. We're gonna come back with the freestyle flow, and then we're gonna go. Yeah.